Good evening, parents, and all of our visitors and those who came to see our lovely first grade students. Welcome to Primary South School. My name is Mrs. Bray, and I am the principal of Winton Woods Primary South. Before we get started, I would like to introduce our wonderful staff who is present today. So staff members, when I call your name, just kind of wave your hand so our parents can see who you are. First, I would like to introduce our wonderful music teacher, Mrs. Henry, who put on this lovely production. Next, I would like to introduce Miss Bailey, who is our long-term substitute art teacher. So all the wonderful art that you see out in the lobbies and the hallways, she helped our children create our artwork. I would like to introduce Miss Smith, who is one of our multiple handicap teachers, and Miss Bain, who is one of our photographers and videographers. She's on the floor there. Miss Saylor, who is our intervention specialist here, and Miss Tracy Sanger, who is her assistant. And our wonderful first grade teachers, Miss Cheney, who's in the back, Miss Carol, Mrs. Ronan, Miss Portenbrock, who is our long-term substitute teacher in the place of Miss Berkemeyer, who is on maternity leave, and Miss Alt, who will be our storyteller, and she is our speech pathologist. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the mic over to Miss Henry, and if we can have this area free and clear so all of our parents and visitors can see the performance.
Good evening. Thank you all so much for coming. The first graders and I have really been working very hard all this semester to prepare for our Fine Arts Night tonight. Our theme for tonight, as you can see, is called Once Upon a Folktale, and the students have been preparing some familiar stories that I'm sure you've probably all heard, and they're going to be using music and instruments and singing to tell these stories along with our storyteller, Miss Alt. So we will go ahead and begin with our theme, Once Upon a Folktale.
Chicken Little. Once upon a time, there was a little chicken named Chicken Little. One day while she was out in the garden, an acorn fell and hit her on the head. Away she ran in great fright, for she thought the sky was falling. I must go and tell the king, she cried. As she ran along, she met Henny Penny. Oh, Henny Penny, the sky is falling, said Chicken Little. How do you know? Asked Henny Penny. Chicken Little replied. Let us go and tell the king, they all cried. As they ran along together, they met Ducky Lucky. Oh, Ducky Lucky, the sky is falling, said Chicken Little. How do you know? Asked Ducky Lucky. Chicken Little replied. Let us go and tell the king, they all cried. As they ran along together, they met Goosey Lucy. Oh, Goosey Lucy, the sky is falling, said Chicken Little. How do you know? Asked Goosey Lucy. Chicken Little replied. Let us go and tell the king, they all cried. As they ran along together, they met Turkey Lurkey. Oh, Turkey Lurkey, the sky is falling, said Chicken Little. How do you know? Asked Turkey Lurkey. Chicken Little replied. Let us go and tell the king, they all cried. As they ran along together, they met Foxy Loxy. Oh, Foxy Loxy, the sky is falling, said Chicken Little. How do you know? Asked Foxy Loxy. Chicken Little replied. Let us go and tell the king, they all cried. I know a shortcut, said Foxy Loxy. Come with me and I will show you where the king lives. So Chicken Little, Henny Penny, Cocky Locky, Ducky Lucky, Goosey Lucy, and Turkey Lurkey all followed Foxy Loxy. But Foxy Loxy was not to be trusted. He led them far away into his den, and oh, they never ever came out again. And to this day, the king has never been told that the sky was falling. The end. The Gingerbread Boy. Once upon a time, there was a little old woman and a little old man who lived all by themselves in a little old house. One day, while the little old woman was baking, she said, I will make a little gingerbread boy. So she did. When the gingerbread boy had baked just enough, the little old woman opened the oven door and out jumped the gingerbread boy. And away he ran. Stop, stop, cried the little old woman. But the gingerbread boy just kept on running and he sang. As he ran along, he came to the little old man who said, stop, stop. But the gingerbread boy just kept on running and said, I ran away from the little old woman and I can run away from you too. And off he ran singing. As he ran along, he came to a barking dog who said, stop, stop, you will be good to eat. But the gingerbread boy just kept on running and said, I ran away from the little old woman, the little old man, and I can run away from you too. And off he ran singing. Fox, who said, "Stop, stop, where are you going?" But the gingerbread boy just kept on running and said, "I ran away from the little old woman, the little old man, and the barking dog, and I can run away from you too." And off he ran singing. "Wait, I couldn't hear your song," said the old gray fox. "Could you get a little closer and sing a little louder?" The gingerbread boy stopped running and came a little closer and sang a little louder. "I'm sorry, but I still couldn't hear your song," said the old gray fox. "Could you get even closer and sing even louder?" So the gingerbread boy got right up next to his ear and sang as loud as he could. Suddenly, at the very end of the song, before the gingerbread boy could take another breath, the old gray fox gobbled him up in a single bite. And that was the end of the gingerbread boy. The end. Once upon a time, there was a shepherd boy whose job was to look after the sheep for the men of the village. At first, the shepherd boy enjoyed his work. He kept little lambs from getting lost and safe from the fierce wolf who lived in the nearby forest. The shepherd boy kept himself from getting bored by making up songs on his flute, but one day, even playing his flute wasn't enough from him feeling lonely and bored. There is never anyone to talk to, just a flock of silly, bleating sheep. I wish something exciting would happen. Maybe the fierce wolf will sneak out of the woods. Suddenly, the shepherd boy had a great idea. In a loud voice, so all the men of the village could hear, he shouted, "Wolf, wolf, come quick!" The men of the village came running with spears, pitchforks, and sticks, but when they reached the pasture, of course there was no fierce wolf. The shepherd boy told them that his yelling had scared off the fierce wolf. Even though some of the men doubted his story, several stayed the rest of the day just to be sure. The shepherd boy had someone to talk to, so he was happy. For the next few days, the shepherd boy enjoyed his quiet work and made up more new songs on his flute. But then boredom set in again, and before long, the men of the village again heard, "Wolf, wolf, come quick!" Once again, they came running with spears, pitchforks, and sticks, and once again, when they reached the pasture, there was no fierce wolf. This time, all the men of the village were angry. "Where are the tracks of the fierce wolf?" they asked. The shepherd boy pointed to some tracks near the stream, but they were just the tracks of sheep. "You have decided to deceive us twice," said the angry men of the village. "Don't bother to call us again, because we know what you're up to." This time, no one stayed to talk with the shepherd boy. He felt bad because he was still lonely, and the men of the village were angry at him. He promised himself that he would try harder to be a good shepherd. A few days later, as the shepherd boy was playing his flute, the fierce wolf did come out of the forest and headed right for the sheep. Without wasting a second, the shepherd boy shouted, "Wolf, wolf, come quick!" No one came, and the fierce wolf was creeping closer and closer to the sheep. So the shepherd boy, thinking that his cry for help had not been heard, yelled in his very loudest voice, "Wolf, wolf, come quick!" The men of the village had heard the cries for help, but had said, "That shameful boy is trying to trick us again. There is no fierce wolf. Let's just keep up with our work." When no one came to help, the shepherd boy tried to beat off the intruder with his staff, but before he did, the fierce wolf killed one of the little lambs and carried it off to the forest for his dinner. Then the shepherd boy ran down from the pasture to tell the men of the village what had happened and to find out why no one had come to help. When he heard the story, the village leader said, "You deceived us twice, and we thought you were deceiving us again. If you want help when you're in trouble, you must call only when you really need help." No one believes a liar, even when he speaks the truth. The end. Three Billy Goats Gruff. Once upon a time, there were 3 Billy Goats whose last name was Gruff. Their favorite food in all the world was new spring grass. When they had eaten all the new spring grass in their own meadow, they decided to go to the hillside across the roaring river, where there was a lot of delicious new spring grass growing. But to get to the hillside, they had to cross a bridge, and under this bridge lived a terrible troll who loved to eat the animals who crossed the bridge. One day, the first Billy Goat Gruff decided he had to cross the bridge to eat some of that delicious new spring grass growing on the hillside. He was the youngest and the smallest Billy Goat, and as he crossed the bridge, he sang, "Who's that tripping across my bridge?" growled the terrible troll. "I'm the first Billy Goat Gruff, and I'm going to the hillside to eat some of my delicious new spring grass," he said. "Oh, no, you're not, because I'm going to eat you up," said the terrible troll. "Please, oh, please don't eat me. Wait for the second Billy Goat Gruff. He is much bigger and juicier than I," said the first Billy Goat Gruff. "Very well, then, be gone with you," said the terrible troll. Soon thereafter, along came the second Billy Goat Gruff. As he crossed the bridge, he sang, "Who's that trapping across my bridge?" growled the terrible troll. "I'm the second Billy Goat Gruff, and I'm going to the hillside to eat some delicious new spring grass," he said. "Oh, no, you're not, because I'm going to eat you up," said the terrible troll. "Please, oh, please don't eat me. Wait for the third Billy Goat Gruff. He is much bigger and juicier than I," said the second Billy Goat Gruff. "Very well, then, be gone with you," said the terrible troll. And soon enough, along came the third Billy Goat Gruff. As he crossed the bridge, he sang, "Who's that trooping across my bridge?" growled the terrible troll. "I'm the third Billy Goat Gruff. I'm the biggest and the strongest Billy Goat, and I'm going to the hillside to eat some delicious new spring grass," he said. "Oh, no, you're not, because I'm going to eat you up," said the terrible troll. "Eat me up? Oh, no, you won't," said the third Billy Goat Gruff, who then butted the terrible troll with his great big horns and knocked him off the bridge into the roaring river. The river carried the terrible troll far away, and he was never heard from again. Now, every spring, the 3 Billy Goats Gruff freely cross over the bridge to eat the delicious new grass. That is their favorite food, you know. The end. One warm and sunny day, a little girl named Goldilocks was walking through the forest. Goldilocks wandered on and on until she came to a house she had never seen before. In the house lived a family of bears, a papa bear, a mama bear, and a baby bear. All the bears loved their house and were very happy. Goldilocks knocked on the door and waited, but nobody answered. So Goldilocks slowly went inside the house. The three bears had gone out for a walk in the forest and left their bowls of homemade pudding on the table. Goldilocks was very hungry, so she decided to have a taste of pudding from the biggest bowl, but it was too hot. Goldilocks tasted the pudding from the medium-sized bowl, but it was too cold. Then she tasted the pudding from the smallest bowl, and it was just right, and she ate it all. I feel good and full of pudding, said Goldilocks. I would like to sit down and rest. She saw a great big chair, and she climbed up on it, but it was too hard. Next, she sat in the medium-sized chair, but it was too soft. Finally, she sat in the teeny tiny chair, and it was just right. But Goldilocks broke the chair when she sat in it. By this time, Goldilocks was a little tired and didn't even clean up her mess. I would like to take a nap, she said. I can clean up my mess later. She walked over to the three bears' bed and climbed onto the great big bed, but it was too hard. Then Goldilocks climbed onto the medium-sized bed, but it was too soft. Finally, she laid down on the teeny tiny bed, and it was just right. Soon, she was fast asleep. When Goldilocks was sleeping, the three bears came home from their walk. They were not happy about what they found at home. The three bears were very hungry from their walk, and they were happy to eat their homemade pudding. Somebody tasted my pudding, said Papa Bear. Somebody tasted my pudding, said Mama Bear. Somebody tasted my pudding, Somebody sat in my chair, said Papa Bear. Somebody sat in my chair, said Mama Bear. Somebody sat in my chair, said Baby Bear, and the chair is broken. The three bears walked to their beds and couldn't believe their eyes. Somebody laid on my bed, said Papa Bear. Somebody laid on my bear's bed, said Mama Bear. Somebody laid on my bed and she's still here, said Baby Bear. Goldilocks woke up from her nap and saw the three bears. She was so scared that she jumped up and ran out of the house. Goldilocks promised to never go into a stranger's house ever again. The end.
All right, we are about coming to the end of our show. I want to thank you again so much for coming, and I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. All of the classes have prepared one last song, which is Michael Finnegan, and they are getting some props that they are going to be holding while they're singing. And I'm going to ask that when they are finished with this last song, that the classes are going to be walking back to their rooms, and that you pick up your children at the classrooms rather than taking them from the stage. You can go to their classrooms and pick them up. Thank you again so much for coming out, and have a good evening.